Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Ed Danis, Corporate Innovation Manager at Lockheed Martin.
Hi everyone, thanks for having me here. I really appreciate Bright Idea and inviting Lockheed Martin to come out and present. You guys have a fantastic team here, from Michelle Brown, Brian Benson, Matt Kenny, Rod O'Connor. You guys have done a fantastic job in getting us started. We're new to the Bright Idea family just this year. Started back in January, we launched an internal innovation campaign, and so that team did a great job of helping us get up and running. A little bit about me, I'm the Corporate Innovation Manager at Lockheed Martin. I report under the Chief Technology Officer line of command. We've got a Vice President of Technology Innovation and Strategy, and then Director of Technology and Innovation. So I fall under that role of corporate innovation, and I'll talk a little bit more about what that means. A little bit about my background. I started off as a software engineer 20 some odd years ago, worked on device drivers, command and control systems, and some user interfaces, and eventually went on to become a system engineer, system architect, and eventually lead system engineer for some of the larger programs we have. So Lockheed has been pretty good to me in that whatever opportunities I was looking for when it came to technology and innovation, they seem to have. And I'll go through some of that today, some of the broad areas that we participate in with technology and innovation. I'd like to start off real quick with just a video that introduces the innovation campaign here at Lockheed Martin.
We are the innovators, the ones with the new ideas. Ideas that transform our world and improve the quality of life for billions. Capturing and storing energy until it's needed. Providing unmatched protection from threats through precision targeting and navigation systems. Helping farmers use precision mapping to maximize crop growth. Revolutionizing vertical flight through faster, autonomous, and intelligent aircraft. Because we are the visionaries who look at the commonplace and see solutions never before imagined. At Lockheed Martin, we're in the business of innovation, where creative thinking has always been a competitive advantage. It's what we've always done. While many were focused on designing better maps, we were making GPS more accurate and reliable. And while some focused on flying below the radar, we perfected stealth technology. We have a rich legacy of looking beyond the horizon, soaring into the wild blue, then way beyond, making amazing discoveries, and venturing where humans can't go. Always working to connect the dots, whether separated by light years or a single molecule. We are ready to address the world's biggest challenges, like preserving the planet, helping customers monitor and analyze our changing climate, and meeting the growing demands for clean and affordable energy, including technology that converts waste into electricity. We confront the challenge of global security, building the world's most advanced fighter aircraft that tracks without being tracked, redefining combat ships, ground vehicles, and weapon systems to address the threats of the future, ensuring information is secure and reliable across the battle space and through cyberspace. We are the innovators, fearless, relentless, who support our customers' missions with fierce loyalty, with a drive to create amazing solutions to difficult challenges. We are the innovators who inspire the next generation to find answers for questions yet to be asked, because that's what we do. See a world filled with endless possibilities, envision the future, and then make it a reality. We're engineering a better tomorrow.
So to me, that's such a great video because even though it has a Lockheed Martin stamp on it, I feel like that really speaks to innovators in general. I mean, think about it. We are relentless, right? And we're passionate about the things that we do. And when you think about people that go to work every day that clock in and count their 8 hours and clock out, that's not us. Typically, we're excited about going to work because we're optimists. We want to see what the next great thing is. And we take that passion and we just spread it throughout the people that we work with and the products that we develop. It's such a fun time right now to be an innovator because of all the opportunities available to us. And just being here in San Francisco near Silicon Valley is a great place to be. I mean, this is considered the mecca of innovation, right? Everyone comes to Silicon Valley to find out what the next great thing is. Even the Pentagon has created an outpost out here in Silicon Valley because they want to know more about that culture. What is it that makes innovators in this area so special? And so in preparing for this presentation, I was thinking about that myself. What is it about Silicon Valley and innovation in this area that draws people here from all walks of life and all around the world? And of course, we know about Silicon Valley, how it got its name, and the technology revolution that happened in the 70s and 80s that helped shape that name. But thinking about just this area in general, when you think about the early settlers back during the gold rush days, right? These are people that left the comforts of society, basically, and civilization, and came out here with nothing, right? They would come out and just on imagination, hopes, dreams, perspiration, and a lot of luck, they had the potential to become rich. And you think about innovators and entrepreneurs today, they still do that. They come to this area because there's that opportunity and the possibility that they might be able to strike it rich. It's going to take work, it takes imagination, it takes some luck, but there's that opportunity. So, and thinking about Lockheed Martin and where I'm going with this is, we actually had our first startup here in California back in the turn of the century, the 20th century. At that time, the Industrial Revolution was going. Henry Ford had perfected the mass production of vehicles. The Wright brothers had just started their first powered flight. And so that was a time when the entrepreneurs of that time were looking towards more mechanical innovations, not so much technical like we know today. But these are the people that had that same mindset that the entrepreneurs have today on innovation. So two California startups. There was the Glenn L. Martin Company that was actually in Los Angeles, but the Lockheed Company was here in San Francisco. And yeah, the name is spelled a little bit different. Back then it was Loughead, sounds like Lockheed. They eventually changed the spelling because phonetically that says Lockheed. So the founders of our company, Alan and Malcolm Lockheed, two brothers that were brought out here by their mother, who was a prospector. A lot of people were still coming out at that time looking for gold. And so they had kind of that spirit instilled in them to go out and chase your opportunities. Alan, the younger brother on the left, was the more adventurous one. He was actually an aviator before they even started a company. Malcolm was more of an engineering-focused type. He actually patented the first hydraulic brake system for automobiles, so he was probably the more practical one of the two. Glenn Martin, down in Los Angeles, he loved flying kites until the Wright brothers showed them that you can actually fly your own airplane. And like a lot of innovators today and entrepreneurs, they got their starts in garages. So they all worked in auto mechanics and that type of field where they were doing mechanical type engineering. And so they got their start. The Lockheed brothers, just a few blocks away on Polk Avenue, in their dealership that they worked in, would work at nights and weekends building their airplane, and Glenn Martin was working out of a church. And coincidentally, again, these two companies that were destined to come together were both working on seaplanes at the time, but they were working on them in a little bit different fashion. The Martin airplane was more of a traditional type airplane where you had the propeller on the back and the engine in the back. It was called a pusher. The Lockheed brothers were a little bit more innovative when they started looking at how to make an airplane better than it is today. Put the propeller in the front and the engine in the front. And the reason was when the planes would crash, and keep in mind, these are 20-something-year-old kids. I call them kids because I'm much older than that. But they would build these planes from scratch. They didn't have plans. They didn't have kits. Aeronautics was not an engineering degree you could get at the time. So they were just using their wit and learning from other successes on what was possible, and they were building this. So at the time when people were crashing, those the pushers, the engine and propeller would fall on top of the pilot, which would cause injury and even death. So they started putting it in the front. And the way they made money at the time was just flying tourists around the bay. They had an expo here back around that time where they charged $5 a day to go fly around the bay. The Martin would fly people out to Catalina Island for money. And again, the mass production wasn't quite there yet, so they would build one plane, fly it around until it couldn't fly anymore, build another plane until it couldn't. Until the Lockheed brothers teamed up with a person named Jack Northrop. And you guys might recognize that from Northrop Grumman. He was the person that founded Northrop. And it's just amazing that that group of people at that time got together to build these planes. So once they decided that they were going to become a plane manufacturing company, they went out and tried to build the best possible plane they could at the time. And so this is going to be an early lesson in innovation for this company. That again, they sought out to come up with the most innovative design they could. And so you can see that this has more of a rounded type fuselage. Just the specs on it, it could withstand 6 Gs of force. It consumed 1 gallon per hour of fuel. I mean, that's just amazing, right? Flight speed of 52 miles per hour. And they took some of the things they learned from Henry Ford on manufacturing so they can mass produce these at a much lower cost. What they didn't have was the book on design thinking. And the reason why that's important is they have this technological marvel of an airplane. The wings folded back so it could fit in the garage. They say, we want this to be the everyman plane. Everybody's going to want one. Well, without that first step of empathy, finding out what the customer wants and what it is they need and what's the gap they're filling, they said, we're going to create this great thing. Everyone's going to come to it. Well, it turns out not everybody wanted to fly a plane. And not everybody, even though $2,500 was pretty reasonable for a plane at that time, not everybody wanted to spend that much. And what happened was at that time, World War I had just finished. And so they had a lot of airplanes that were in surplus that they were selling for $750, pennies on the dollar for that time. And so every man that did want to fly was buying that. So incredible technological feat here with this airplane, but they sold 0. So again, design thinking would have been helpful at that time. I'm just going to go through and there's a lot of history in Lockheed Martin. I could probably spend a couple hours talking about some of this, but I'm going to go through just some of the highlights just real quick to let you get a feel for what is the makeup of our company, some of the DNA, because it's not just the Lockheed Aircraft Company and the Glenn L. Martin Company. Certainly they had a couple of starts. The first company Lockheed created was the Alco Hydro Airplane Company. It was named after their investor, the Alco Cab Company. Then they had the Lockheed Aircraft and eventually changed the name, the spelling of it, to Lockheed as we know it today. But the pivotal point within the Lockheed history was during the Great Depression when the company was struggling to stay alive. They basically went into receivership and Robert Gross bought the company from them. He was another young person, about 32, that saw potential in this company. And the reason why that's important is he's the one that first hired 2 engineers. The first thing he did is hire 2 engineers right out of school. One of them was Kelly Johnson. And Kelly Johnson is just a brilliant young man at the time, was taking their airplanes, finding the flaws and fixing them, but he was the one that eventually went to start Skunk Works. And some of the lore in Skunk Works, I think when you think about design thinking and particularly lean startup these days, you would see a lot of similarities in the way he ran the program there. It was all about get rid of the waste. Don't do work that doesn't help you. And so they're able at that time to take airplanes from design to first flight within months, versus now you see it takes years and in some cases decades to get an airplane up in the air. Out of Skunk Works, we had some pretty famous airplanes like the U-2 and the SR-71 that came out of it. And during this time, the Martin Company, I didn't have a lot of highlights there because while they're very successful at the time, they were working with the government, supplying military with airplanes, going into the missile business. There are other things that were happening in heritage Lockheed Martin companies like RCA. Not many people know that the RCA lab that first built the first color TV is part of Lockheed now. GE Aerospace, which developed some of the early radars, ones that track Sputnik, for example, eventually became part of Lockheed Martin. RCA did the first weather satellite. We've been involved with early submarines. IBM Federal Systems that provided the first computers to NASA as part of Lockheed Martin now, as well as the work they did on GPS. Some other notables, perfecting the stealth technology like they talked about in the video. That was happening during the Cold War when that was a problem where planes were getting shot down. So, and then the Unisys with the Doppler radar. So we're not just aviation. Our culture it goes far beyond aviation and missiles as part of our namesake would suggest. We're involved with so many other things. So through this timeline, it would take us up to the 1990s. At that time, the Cold War had just ended, and so the government was starting to scale down the military and consolidating bases and troops. And they basically said, defense contractors, you need to consolidate as well. If you don't consolidate, you're probably not going to survive. So in that time, there was a mad rush to bring companies together, and that's how Lockheed Martin was formed. One night, Martin Marietta CEO Norm Augustine was trying to broker a deal with one of their rivals, which was the Grumman Company at the time. And while they're having trouble getting that deal to work out, the CEO from Lockheed had called him and said, "Hey, do you have any interest in putting Martin Marietta and Lockheed together as a merger of equals?" And that was a concept that hadn't been thought of before that phone call. But it turns out it ended up being a marriage made in heaven, basically, because things worked out pretty well. The one interesting sticking point they had was in coming up with the name. Martin Marietta was a more dominant company at the time. And so the thought was it would be Martin Lockheed, but because that sounds like a person, they swapped it around to Lockheed Martin, which I like it better myself. It sounds better. So today, we've had fluxes in staffing levels, but right now we're at 97,000 people. We're global, working in 70 countries, have nearly 600 different facilities. Half of our employees are scientists and engineers. We're broken down into 4 business areas, and if anybody knows how the DoD is structured, you've got the branches of the military: Army, Air Force, Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard, I guess. And over an umbrella organization over that is going to be the Department of Defense. That's kind of how our business is structured as well. We've got the aeronautics, which is the Heritage, Lockheed, and the Martin Company, and the airplanes that they've developed. Skunk Works fits under there. We've got missiles and fire control, rotary and mission systems. We recently acquired Sikorsky helicopters, and that fits underneath that group. And then space systems, which has been involved with all things space, from satellites to rockets to exploration. Now, when we talk about innovation at Lockheed, part of our goal at corporate is to help set some focus areas. And so when it comes to technology, we have things that we feel are broad enough across all of the business areas that we bring out and try to tie most of our innovation to those. So from a strategic standpoint, we have autonomy and robotics. That's something that everybody, I think, is interested in these days. We're looking at how do we pair up man and machine so that the machine is giving us some information that we can make decisions on, and how do we use robotics to help assist our users. Sensors, technology, and exploitation, it's just all about gathering as much data as you can about the environment around you and how to use it. Cybersecurity is a huge, huge area of interest for us. I think most people know that, based on recent events, it becomes more familiar to you in the news that, hacking continues to happen and breaches happen. And we've certainly had our share at Lockheed of foreign companies coming in and stealing data from hacking into our systems. But our customers are concerned about that too. You don't want somebody hacking an F-35 while it's flying in the air, Mach whatever. And certainly you don't want somebody in a submarine having a system that's been hacked, because if you lose navigation, for example, that causes a lot of issues. We're interested in signals processing and communication. So that's taking the unstructured data and making it usable, whether you're putting it into a visualization or collecting information and presenting it back to the users and then communicating it. Again, IoT is a big interest of ours right now too. So how do you keep things connected? And lastly is directed energy. That's one of those emerging technologies that you may have seen in the news recently. We were able to use directed energy to bring down a drone, for example. Now we have the enabling technologies, which are more fundamental. So data analytics, machine learning. I think everybody's probably interested in that. But we also look at next generation electronics and how do we support our platforms. And materials and manufacturing, I think, is really fascinating because there's so many interesting things going on with like graphene and other type of materials, finding new ways where we can take these materials and create lighter structures that are as strong as current materials. We have a number of labs across Lockheed Martin. So the Advanced Development Program, that's where Skunk Works is, for example. A lot of the air capabilities are developed out of there. The ATL, Advanced Technology Lab, that's the old RCA group that's out in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. Center for Innovation, that's a really cool place. That's, they've got this place where you can do simulations and demonstrations and experimentation. We've got the ATC right here in the San Francisco area that's dealing with space-based research, or applied research and advanced programs out of Orlando and Dallas, and then Sikorsky Innovations, which is out in Connecticut. Okay, I know that's a mouthful, and it's, again, a lot of information, but wanted to just put all that out there, and if you guys have any questions or you want more details, the time here is a little bit limited, so be sure to, I'm here to speak to anybody that has questions and would like to know more about it. Okay, now to the good stuff, the innovation part of this, the corporate innovation. So I think I have one of the best jobs in the world, to be honest with you. I mean, to be working in corporate innovations for Lockheed Martin, where we get to look across all the business areas and find out, what's going on, where the challenges are, where the problems are, and how can we help. I mean, to me, that's the most exciting thing. So we have tools that we use, and our mission is to orchestrate our technology and innovation ecosystem. We have tools that allow us to go out there and see what's being researched around the communities and the research labs and within even the government, to do some kind of tech intelligence to find out where we might be able to find opportunities. And then we have the strategy aspect, which is looking at what our technology strategy is, what the road mapping is to get us there. And then the part that I work in is innovation, where we get to take these ideas and try to realize them. So we have three basic phases, the 3 I's of innovation: ideation, investigation, implementation. And while these are the different phases, how we approach each phase can be varied based on the environment of the ideas that we get. But the ideation phase is just all about finding the ideas from the community that we're working in, whether it's internal or external, and then doing the hypothesis and experimentation on those ideas. And our ultimate goal from a corporate innovation standpoint is then to transition it to implementation, which is basically handing it off to our business areas for development. So starting with strategic ideation, this is 1/3 of my job right now, which is finding those ideas. And the way we do that is first through looking at problems, customer problems. One example could be position, navigation, and timing. So what happens if we have a system that's out there and GPS goes away? I mean, can you imagine? The world would end if GPS went away, wouldn't it? I mean, people would be walking around with their iPhones. I don't know where I am. So that's the problem that our customers see as well, because imagine, again, an F-35 out there without any idea of where they are because they relied on GPS. So we could find a problem like that and put out an innovation challenge. How would you keep position, timing, and navigation in the absence of GPS? We might look at emerging technologies as an opportunity for collecting ideas as well. And all of this is going to be founded on our technology strategy, mission strategy, and the foundational technology threads I mentioned earlier. Now, again, this is kind of where we caught our stride this year by using Bright Idea. Again, I'll foot stomp a little bit of what Matt was saying. I mean, those apps that they put together really made our life a lot easier. You could put out a challenge and put it out to the entire community, and with almost very little effort to put it out there. But the ability to get ideas coming in was just awesome. I mean, we loved it. We take our innovation challenges, and it was fun to play with the apps to find out what works and what didn't. And certainly we looked at, do we want to collect one idea, or do we want to collect, a couple dozen ideas to fund? And one thing that we found, and this is just a little insight to some lessons learned that we had, our innovation challenges are usually looking for multiple ideas. We consider ourselves almost a extended virtual hackathon, in that when we put the challenge out there, we'll get a bunch of ideas for the problem that we put out. So let's take the GPS denied environment as an example. We put the challenge out there, we might get 20, 30, 40 ideas, and then we'll take those and we'll select maybe the top 5 or 10. And the type of ideas we're looking for are not going to be something that's pretty straightforward. At the corporate innovation level, we're looking for those wild, bold ideas, those things that are going to be truly transformational, potentially disruptive, the ideas that are too risky for any one business area to take on their own. And it's unfortunate that we live in a risk-adverse environment at Lockheed, and it's actually for a good thing, because failure is not an option. You hear that all the time, and certainly in a space program, aviation, you want that to be true. You don't want planes falling out of the sky. You don't want rockets crashing. So failure is not an option. That's right. But when it comes to experimentation, I think a lot of people know this, there's learning that can happen in failure. So that really didn't exist anywhere before corporate innovation came around. Most of the funding that you would see at our labs would be for those Horizon 1 type activities, things that are going to help us in the near term, but we want them to be successful. These are things that are going to drive down risk. So by putting out these challenges that we put out, we're asking for those those wild ideas. How would you approach this? And let's find the most novel ways. So we'll take 5, 10, however many ideas we find that are worthy of meeting that criteria, and we'll give them a month or two, small funding to go off and test it out and see what we get back and kind of down select from there. So and then the emerging technologies. I mean, that to me is a lot of fun when you look at what's on the horizon. I mean, and then find out, can we use it? I mean, who hasn't taken mixed reality, for example, and said, how can I apply that to my industry, right? Some other things that have come out recently, like chatbots. Everyone's looking at chatbots. How can I use that to help my customer service or my training? Some newer things that have come out, like synthetic biology. Is this a field that we can actually take and create some new systems or new platforms or new sensors based off of it? And I'll say the latest emerging technology that has caught my interest, and I heard this just a couple weeks ago, is synthetic emotion. Think about that, synthetic emotion. So the premise is, you use your computer, and a lot of the times the feedback you get is just cold, error, or whatever it is. It's usually something negative, but what if you could create emotion out of your platforms? And I'm just imagining walking in one day, opening my laptop and saying, "Good morning, Ed. How are you today?" "Well, I'm doing great." "Oh, thank you for unloading my inbox. I feel much less bloated today." So is that what synthetic emotion is going to be? I don't know. So anyway, that's our ideation phase. The second third of the work that I do is in these, what we call them, seedlings. And this is really just an incubator for all of these ideas that we get. Again, we're looking for the high risk, low investment, minimum oversight. Again, we want to strip away all of the stuff that makes developing technology hard. We want to get that out. And so we apply the things like lean startup and design thinking. We started this year also looking into value proposition and business model, because a lot of engineers, they love the technology. They just want to see, can I do it? Can I make this work? And to them, that's all they care about. But again, when it comes to innovation, if nobody cares about it, then it's just an idea, right? So we got to find value in that idea and that technology as we build it. So we started looking at value proposition and business model canvas, and we've done some, played around a little bit with how we could structure the business model canvas to fit our needs. But then we also give them the opportunity to work across business areas. So a lot of times when the innovation's happening within a business area, it's within that one business area only. By bringing in all of the business areas into these seedlings, it gives them the opportunity to learn something they might not have otherwise from an adjacent technology area. And again, I think one of the biggest things we provide that they don't have elsewhere is that permission to fail. This is a place where we tell them it's okay to fail, and that helps us get some of the bolder ideas. And I'll say from a challenge standpoint, that's one of the areas that we still struggle with. The ideas that we get tend to be safe, and it's hard to get people to really open up out of fear of either ridicule or fear of not being able to succeed. I mean, we've kind of been a success-oriented company for a while. So giving them permission to fail is kind of a cultural shift for us, which we're continuing to evolve every day. Now, when it comes to metrics, I mean, I think everybody collects those general metrics to say how many people participated, how many ideas did you collect, how many challenges did you run, how many of them transitioned, how much money did you make off of it, what was the return on investment. From our standpoint at corporate innovation, because we don't work directly with the customers, we work with the business areas, success for us is really two things. Is the technology feasible, and does anybody care? So technology readiness level, if anybody's heard that, is just the maturation from basic science to mission proven. And for us, what we care about is, can we take something that's either a basic science or concept, take it to proof of concept, and then cross that valley of death to lab demo. That's where you determine whether or not this is a technology that's feasible. From a commitment level, we start off with the seedling award. So that's initial commitment is we were going to give you some money to get started. But then they have to go off and find an executive champion. Find somebody that actually cares about the technology within the company. Typically, we're looking for a vice president level or similar that would say, yes, this is something I'm interested in. Next, we want to get a customer demo. Can we get somebody to come in and take a look at it? And then that valley of death across the commitment line is, do they care? Now that they've seen it, do they care? Do they care enough to say, yeah, I want to learn more? Or even better, hey, I want to invest in this a little bit. And so success for us isn't measured in ROI. It's not, I mean, we use the indicators to say whether or not the awareness is there. I mean, that's another challenge I think we have Being such a large company with so much diversity, and again, being broken up into the 4 business areas, is we have, I think we were talking about this not too long ago, 88,000 people that we broadcast, challenges to. And if we get 1,000 people in, that's pretty good. And that tells us that it's not the awareness isn't still there. It still isn't there yet. So that's something that we focus on more so than some of the typical other metrics like return on investment. Okay, the third part of my job, and this is equally fun, is some of the outreach that we do. And I'm going to focus on the smallest icon there, which is the Innovation Garage collaboration. Now, the Innovation Garage started actually here in the Silicon Valley area at one of our plants, where a group of people said, hey, we need a makerspace. Let's go start one. And again, being typical entrepreneurs, they found a way to get technology into a space that they were able to acquire, which was basically a closet that nobody was using, and put a 3D printer in there, and that was the start of their garage. From that has grown a very broad-based grassroots effort across the corporation to start these garages at multiple sites now. And so the way we participated from a corporate innovation standpoint was to support these garages and their events. So last year, the Sunnyvale Garage said they wanted to do a 3D printing competition. I asked them, hey, what if we took this corporate-wide? Would that work? They said, sure. So what ended up happening was, what started off as 5 guys with a 3D printer wanting to host a competition locally became an entire corporation-wide competition where we had people that were participating that had never worked with a 3D printer before, was learning how to use the tools to create a model and to print it out. And we ended up taking the top 3 from each of the different business areas, brought up to a corporate level competition where everyone from our CTO down would decide which ones they liked the best, and we awarded 3D printers to the top prizes. And what that did was, and this was our goal, was it then sparked the conversation across the sites. Why don't we have a makerspace? Why don't we have our own innovation garage? And it was nice to see that a couple of garages actually started because of that. So that's part of the engagement I get to work with, is trying to spark the culture of innovation in places where it may not have done on its own. We also have challenges like Kaggle, if anyone's familiar with that. One of our technology threads was data analytics. And so in order to not only bring out the people that are most capable in data analytics, but to promote data analytics as a skill that we're looking for, we hosted a Kaggle competition which had cash awards, and that brought people out that, again, wouldn't have participated otherwise. And I think their 3rd place winner was a software engineer that had never done data analytics in his life, but because there was monetary awards involved, he said he'd give it a try, and actually ended up coming with the 3rd place award for that. And that was kind of a neat one because Sikorsky had just joined us, so we actually incorporated them into this competition where we took some of their data from some of their helicopters and brought those in, the data set in for them to work with. The Innovation Outreach Program, this is a small group of companies that don't really work in the same industry that we get together and collaborate with. And so we've had some opportunities with like commercial airlines, for example, and developing concepts for how we would do automated airline inspections. Those are the type of things that came out of that group. And then lastly, Sikorsky itself has an open entrepreneurial challenge that they host. Small businesses are free to participate at any time and to come in and suggest their ideas and get funded for a short amount of time to see if they can mature that technology. Okay, so anyway, the global innovation ecosystem goes beyond what I've talked about here. The company works with many countries, many governments, many small medium enterprises, universities, small businesses, labs. So everything that happens within Lockheed, we consider to be part of a larger ecosystem. Now, looking to the future, we are looking at some transformational R&D, and a lot of the stuff you can find on Google and YouTube. It's some pretty fascinating stuff. Compact fusion, I think, is going to be awesome when that comes around. When we think about it, they're going to be able to take something that's on the size of a semi and be able to power an entire city with it. This is not going to be nuclear reaction. It's not cold fusion. It's a warm fusion, compact fusion that they're working on. Supersonics, we have an addiction to speed and height and breaking records, so we're going to continue to look at hypersonic flight, supersonic flight. How do we eliminate the sonic booms? We're looking into autonomy in our platforms. We actually invested in a quantum computer not too long ago, so that's another area that we're very interested in. The hybrid airship is something out of Skunk Works. Again, we're looking at alternate forms of transportation. This is something that can take cargo to places where you wouldn't normally be able to take them because of the lack of roads. And then directed energy, of course, is another one. So, solving global challenges. Again, when you think of Lockheed, you might think of, again, the defense industry and supporting the military. But from the, as you can see from that video, there's a lot of technologies that we're also interested in that goes beyond just the military. Again, solving global challenges through alternate forms of transportation, alternate forms of energy, again, the compact fusion. Some great videos out there recently of Lockheed Martin working on designs. I don't know if you guys saw this, but it's incorporating art and design where you would use wind and these small little things, I guess there's little flaps that would flicker in the wind, but it created this artwork along the side of a building but generated energy. We're looking at ocean thermal energy, all kinds of stuff that we're looking into that would help solve some global challenges. Again, we're addicted to speed, so some of the core technologies we're going to continue to focus on. Hypersonics, I mean, that to me is just amazing. If we can get hypersonic vehicles that would minimize the time to transport people and things, that's an area that we'll continue to look at. It's a very harsh environment. You think about the space module that's coming down out of the space, and it's got all that fire and plasma built up around it. Those are the type of harsh environments we're talking about with hypersonic transportation. And lastly, and this is my favorite, this is exploring new worlds. I mean, for innovators, there's nothing better than exploration. We love to find new things and try new things. And so for a company like ours to be able to participate in some of the Mars technologies, so from the Orion capsule that we developed that's going to take the first humans to Mars, the base stations and habitats, those are all the type of things that we're also looking into. So with that, that's my broad stroke across Lockheed Martin, some of the technologies that we're looking at, our innovation program. And again, if you have any questions, I could speak to this for hours, but with the limited amount of time, I wanted to just give you an overview, and just feel free to come talk to me if you have any other questions. All right, thank you.
Ed? Thanks so much. Great presentation. Let's grab a seat here. Do some Q&A. I think you covered a lot of stuff. So I'm always fascinated with where do people come from, and how do they cross the line into this innovation space? Because they always come from different places. So when in your engineering career did you say I'm gonna jump from that into what I'm doing and do some of this innovation stuff? Yeah,
that's an interesting question, because a lot of people that are in innovation at Lockheed come from the universities, and they're already doing research, and they come straight to our labs. My journey is a little more interesting in that I've always been an innovator at heart. It was just a matter of waiting for the opportunities to present itself.
Okay.
And so I've always been a tinkerer, always looked for new opportunities to take advantage of technologies. And so I think for most people, it's just a matter of finding that right time to transition. The opportunities are there. I mean, we're living in a time where, again, just the amount of technology that's available to us, the tools that are available to us, make it so easy to create and take ideas and realize them. It's just a personal decision, really.
And then so you were always the engineer on a project that would kind of push the envelope and integrate new things, or?
Yeah, that's part of my interesting career, in that the things that make Lockheed Martin great really is our ability to create platforms that are reliable, high quality, and sustainable. And I was always the type of person that would look for the latest technology and say, why aren't we applying this, right? Why aren't we taking advantage of this? And so that's, again, what led me down this path was some of the frustrations that I would have early on, just being a young engineer, not understanding that you do have to, at certain parts of the program, be stable.
Yep.
And that just wasn't me. I always wanted to take the latest and greatest, which is what drove me into innovation.
And then at some point, did someone say, that sort of moment, did someone say, why don't we do a team, or did you sort of part-time pick up some of these responsibilities, and then it became more of a formal role, or?
So yeah, the way we started off was, again, with our CTO realizing that there was an opportunity to put in place a small team. It was something that was thought through for a couple months, but when they decided to go forward with it, they put a call out for innovators. Who wants to be part of this innovation team? So I was fortunate enough to get selected, I think based mostly on my passion, not so much any of the things I've done in the past, because they were all pretty safe. But yeah, they brought on a few people that were going to work hard. And again, I look forward to the next day of work. You have to basically pull me away from work because I'm having so much fun and we're doing so many great things. And once I leave, I can't wait to get back the next day. So those are the type of people they were looking for to help them out. So yeah, we have a pretty small team. And the reason why we can get away with it, we were talking about this earlier, a lot of companies, they don't give them the resources to be successful. And it may seem like, even though we've got the budget, our team is small, we've got the resources across the business areas that we tap into. So it's not our innovation team that works on these ideas. It's the people that are coming from the business areas that support us. So we're supplemented by all of the.
Yeah, I wanted to get into your team and the resourcing, but did they, one last thing on how you sort of arrived on the scene, did they pluck you out of one of the business units or the business areas?
Yes, again, I spent most of my career working in various units. So I started off my career working on programs related to satellites, and then went on to work on some intelligence community, and then into some Navy contracts. Yeah, and so while we have again, a lot of people out there similar to me, and I think this is why I ended up doing well in this role, is there are people out there with ideas but just haven't found the opportunity. Now I get to be the guy that brings the opportunity out to them. Typically when you hear, "Hi, I'm from corporate, I'm here to help," people go running, right? We're changing minds right now in that respect, that, "Hi, I'm from corporate, I've got money so that you can become your own boss and you can become your own entrepreneur if you're willing to do the work."
Yeah, that's interesting. I know Eric Reed's going to be here later, and he's talking about like entrepreneur as a job title within a big company, which I think is a little bit confusing for some people. But it's more what they're doing than whether they're starting a new company, or it's that active, figuring out if there's a solution around a technology.
Yeah, and we are really embracing that concept. We're talking about having spin-out companies soon. So if somebody comes up with a great idea, and maybe it doesn't quite fit into our lines of business, we can spin out a company, so you're still tied to Lockheed Martin, but you're treated as your own entity, and you get to try your hand at entrepreneurship.
Yeah. So can you talk about your team? Is it a handful of people, and how long's the team been around for?
Yeah, so this team's been around for a little over a year now, almost 2 years actually. And so it started off with me. We've got a number of support people that are in the tech strategy area that helps formulate things that we in innovation would care about as far as what we would go look for in ideas. But so there's me as
so they're laying out landscape or strategic landscapes,
road mapping and that type of stuff.
Okay.
And there's about half a dozen people on that group. From an innovation standpoint, really it's me, and I've got another part-time person that helps out with the Bright Idea tool to help keep that coordinated and going. But then again, there's all the tentacles into the business area. So I've got people I tap into that are innovation leads within each of the business areas. While they're not directly badged into the corporate world, they are part of the innovation system or team.
Yep.
And so there's going to be at least 4 of those, one from each business area that supports what we do. And then from there, again, there's the resources of people that are working on it. So the corporate team itself is about 1.5, and we're going to double our size next year and be 2 to 2.5, 3. Yeah, it's growth, right? But yeah.
Cool. So I'd love to just talk a little bit more about these seedling programs. So, everyone has always a slightly different take. So you guys own the process at the corporate level. Where do the seedlings just sort of open submit to you guys, or you go looking with challenges? Where do the seedlings start?
They can start in multiple areas. One of them could be from a challenge, but we also accept unsolicited seedling ideas. Okay. So again, that's kind of the culture we're trying to create there, which is feel free to put an idea out there. There's always going to be naysayers, right? I mean, the naysayers are always, "Yeah, that's never going to work," or "You can't make that happen," and they're probably right about 90% of the time. Yeah. But for that 10%, the 1 out of 10 ideas, I mean, that's what drives the innovators, right? We're not so hung up on what people are saying we can't do. When we find that one idea that works, we're thrilled. And so we give that opportunity for those people that have a dozen ideas, and maybe they'll only get funded for one, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't try to provide ideas. And there might be reasons. Maybe it's not the right timing. Maybe it's something that's already been worked on. But we want people to feel comfortable in bringing us those ideas, even if most of them get shot down for whatever reason.
but you're pushing and pulling. They can send some to you, and then
Right,
sometimes you set up a challenge to,
Right.
to find some new
Yeah,
ones.
the challenges are usually based on customer problems or gaps that we see in our current technology. And so we'll solicit a call for ideas. And the other is, we've always got that open door. If you've got an idea, submit it. And if it fits the criteria, certainly we'll fund it.
And then when the seedlings are getting worked on, you basically pull people, off their day job, or what? I know that's always a dicey thing
Yeah.
with these incubators and
Well,
stuff.
that's where we struggle a little bit as well. Again, some of the challenges we face of not having a dedicated team is people do come off of their day jobs, so they have to work with their managers. The way we're looking at countering that is people can take a week or two off, right? That's a little bit easier than saying I'm going to be half-time for the next 6 weeks. And so we create what we call it a jumpstart event, where as soon as the seedling's awarded and all the funding's in place and you've bought your materials, we're going to take you to one of our garages and let you sit there for a week, maybe 2 weeks, and just hammer out 40, 80 hours. Let's see what you can do versus spend the next 2 months, 40, 80 hours, and maybe not achieve as much, or even worse, the time has passed and it's no longer a valid idea.
So it's kind of a quick surge, a couple weeks,
Right.
And then you guys, when you give a grant to the seedlings, is that basically their time, or do they get some petty cash to kind of cover expenses? Or?
Yeah, so when we award those seedlings, that's to do what, again, we're hands off. We give you the ideas or the funding, and you come back to us and show us what you've done. And so they can use it for if they have to go travel to a customer site, or if they have to buy materials or things to make that idea realized. They can use that funding for whatever it is they need. So again, they become their own entrepreneur. They have to manage their funding just like any startup would on how they're going to spend it.
Got it. One of the things that I heard through the grapevine as you were talking with some of our folks back at Bright Idea was this concept of a happy path, and I'm not sure if that was their words or yours, but you touched on it briefly with the valley of death, but the concept of that you have to develop the tech. You can't just let the tech guys run with the tech. You have to develop the tech and the demand. So can you just speak to that a little bit more?
Yeah, and I have a chart on that. I didn't provide here, just trying to limit how much I could speak to this for hours. But if you've ever seen a risk assessment chart where you have the probability and impact scales, it looks kind of like that, in that we have technology maturation versus customer commitment. And so it's a nice way to plot on an XY scale. Are we maturing the technology far enough, and in tangent or in coordination with that, are we also going and looking for support and investment? And so that, to us, again, is getting our engineers beyond just the technology and realizing that you could develop a technology. If nobody cares, there's no market for it. You've just wasted a lot of time and money. On the alternative is, if you've gotten full customer support but you haven't proven the technology, you might be overhyping it a little bit.
Yep. What do you do to stay kind of current with all these emerging trends and methodologies, et cetera?
No, that's a struggle. Again, being a small team, we're trying to get our arms around everything. It's challenging, but coming to events like this, and I don't care if you're the size of a Lockheed or even bigger, or if you're a startup, just communicating and contacting and collaborating with other innovators is, to me, is the best way to keep up.
Yep. Okay. I had a couple other questions, but we're running a little short on time. Where do you want to? What's the future look like? I mean, where do you want to take all this, and what's the? Well, let me pause on that for a second. I remember my other question. Just how do you measure success? What do your bosses want to see from you? What do you? Is it qualitative? Is it quantitative?
It's a little bit of both. So obviously the business wants to see that what we're doing ultimately provides some value to the company from a financial standpoint. Again, from a CTO perspective, we basically work for all of the business areas. So our job is to find those technologies that they may not otherwise have the opportunity or resources to invest in, and test it out for them. So we want to vet that out. And that's why I said earlier that for us, success isn't really the ROI. It's, can we mature the technology and prove that it's feasible? And can we gain enough customer commitment to say that there's actually a market for it? And that for corporate innovation is measuring success. Now there's the flip side of that, which is, are we doing enough from a corporate innovation standpoint? And that's where awareness comes in, and participation. Again, right now our participation rate is relatively low when you consider the number of employees we have, But at the same time, we're still getting a lot of really good inputs from the people that are participating, but we want to increase the awareness. So the more people that are at least aware come and visit the site, maybe not participate, but we'd like to see that number come up. Obviously, we want to see the participation rate go up for ideas that are being submitted. But again, I think some of that is cultural, where a lot of people are still afraid to submit ideas in fear of it not being good enough.
And quality versus quantity, if you're getting the good stuff, it can be okay. What I'm curious how you interact with those business areas. So like, are you like quarterly checking in? Is it ad hoc? Are they emailing you when they've got a problem, or what's the relationship? Because you're up at the corporate layer, overlaying all these business areas that you serve. So how do you stay close to your customer?
So we have what's called it's called the XBAT, and it's a cross business area.
Sorry, XPAD?
XBAT. So it's the X for cross business area technology team.
Got it.
And that's a group that meets regularly to talk about innovation and other things happening across the corporation. Now at the grassroots level, we have like the Innovation Garages. They host weekly meetings. So I participate in a lot of different coordination meetings like that to find out what's going on, see where corporate can help. Certainly listen to ideas from them on what they think we could do better on. And also share information. So if I hear of something that's happening in one business area that might be of interest to another, try to tie those together. And so it's just really getting involved and communicating as much as I can.
Got it. And then those XBAT, that's a recurring meeting or something that you guys?
Yep.
Okay. Cool. Biggest problem that you kind of currently face? What keeps you up at night?
Well, again, the problem, it goes back to awareness and solving the resource challenge. Again, being a small team from a corporate innovation standpoint, we really rely on the rest of the business areas being aware and participating. So finding a way to get the message out, and certainly we go through the normal channels of, we've got a company-wide bulletin, we're creating videos, and we've got an innovation showcase we're developing that highlights the innovators and their innovations. So continuing down that path of getting awareness, because we want diversity in thought, not just the people that are actively participating, but the ones that are not actively participating are going to have potentially different ideas that we wouldn't normally get. So awareness, and then finding a way to, again, our business model wouldn't allow necessarily for people to just step off for their program for a month or two to go work on something, come back and expect their job to still be there. So finding a way to incorporate into our culture the ability for people to take time, kind of like the old Google, get 20% of your time to go work on whatever you want. We need to find some way to incentivize our managers that say, part of their success is participating in innovation. How many of your employees participate in the innovation program? What was the outcome?
Yep.
Trying to find that shift in our culture to allow for that.
Got it. Briefly, any plans for the future, or what's the next step in your program?
Wow. Well, we're looking forward to seeing what Bright Idea comes up with.
We've got some good stuff.
Because some of the things that you guys have coming up, again, addresses some of our challenges. How do you organize and manage such a big portfolio? I was looking at it this week, and I'm just amazed. Again, being 1.5 people, I've got what are called internal contracts, basically. I've got like 58 internal contracts with the business areas for all the different projects that we're managing. And that's a lot. I mean, when we think about, we've got a pretty good amount of funding that's behind it.
Is that, so a contract would be like a seedling, or a contract would be like running a challenge for them?
Well, a contract would be, here's a seedling project that somebody submitted and we're going to fund. Here are the 4 business areas that are going to participate. Each one of those business areas get funding through a contract through the corporate, says you get this much money to participate in the seedling.
So you're kind of backfilling them. You're giving them some budget in response for pulling some of the resources.
Right. So finding a more efficient way to manage all of the activity that goes on in our innovation program, which I think you guys alluded to, that you're going to start incorporating into your platform. I'm looking forward to. So.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, Ed, thanks again. I know you said you'd be willing. Yeah. Ed said he'd love to talk with anyone, so pull him aside and he'll chat. And then we're just going to do a quick furniture clean here, and then we're going to be back with the awards. So just sit tight, and we'll be right back. Thanks, guys. Great.